until you're ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, excellent. I love you.
I love you too.
Hello, everyone. Today we are doing review lesson 116 and the correlating chapter text of chapter 11, God or the Ego, section 5, the dynamics of the ego, paragraphs 10 through 18. Let us begin. Alex?
So I don't have it up in front of me, so I'm going to try to remember. Okay, this is chapter 11, section 5.
The dynamics of the ego.
The dynamics of the ego, paragraph 10. Your recognition that whatever seems to be separate from you, from God, is only fear, regardless of the form it takes, and quite apart from how the ego wants you to experience it, is therefore the basic ego threat. Its dream of autonomy is shaken to its foundation by this awareness. For though you may countenance a false idea of independence, you will not accept the cost of fear if you recognize it. Yet this is the cost, and the ego cannot minimize it. If you overlook love, you are overlooking yourself, and you must fear unreality because you have denied yourself. By believing that you have successfully attacked truth, you are believing that attack has power. Very simply then, you have become afraid of yourself, and no one wants to find what he believes would destroy him. If the ego's goal of autonomy could be accomplished, God's purpose could be defeated, and this is impossible. Only by learning what fear is can you finally learn to distinguish the possible from the impossible and the false from the true. According to the ego's training, its goal can be accomplished and God's purpose cannot. According to the Holy Spirit's teaching, only God's purpose can be accomplished, and it is accomplished already.
Yeah. As we spoke about in yesterday's lesson in the chapter reading, everything comes back to judgments, that we are afraid to be judged in any way, shape, or form. We are terrified of judgments. We believe, and we are taught to believe, that judgments define us. Other people's judgments and opinions of who they think and believe we are define who we are supposed to be. And because of that, we think with our ego thought system that we can do everything by ourselves, that we don't need anybody else's help, especially not God's. We're taught to be afraid of God because God will judge us. The one thing that we are afraid of is being judged. So if God is judging us, we're terrified. And the ego would have us believing that we have beat and defeated God's purpose. That we can overcome and know more and be more than God is. And that simply isn't possible. These things that our ego has us believing are all lies that have been taught to us since we were born. And it's taught to us just as it was taught to our parents and our grandparents and all of our ancestors. Somewhere back there in the beginning, somebody made a choice to believe that they needed to control somebody else. And they used manipulation through judgments. And that has been passed down from generation to generation. And all of those judgments were made out of fear. Please continue.
12. God is as dependent on you as you are on him, because his autonomy encompasses yours, and is therefore incomplete without it. You can only establish your autonomy by identifying with him and fulfilling your function as it exists in truth. The ego believes that to accomplish its goal is happiness, but it is given you to know that God's function is yours, and happiness cannot be found apart from your joint will. Recognize only that the ego's goal, which you have pursued so diligently, has merely brought you fear, and it becomes difficult to maintain that fear is happiness. Upheld by fear, this is what the ego would have you believe. Yet God's Son is not insane and cannot believe it. Let him but recognize it, and he will not accept it. For only the insane would choose fear in place of love, and only the insane could believe that love can be gained by attack. But the sane realize that only attack could produce fear, from which the love of God completely protects them.
Wow. That said a lot in there. You know, where it says here in that first sentence, God is as dependent on you as you are on him, because his autonomy encompasses yours and is therefore incomplete without it. You know, I shared with you all before the understanding I'm given by my guides of how within me, within my heart chakra, where my altar is, where my soul resides, is my altar. And in that altar, where my soul resides, God resides with me, as does Holy Spirit. They all reside within there with me. And God also resides out there, of which I reside within him in his altar with Holy Spirit. So just as God is within me, I am within God. And that is the understanding I'm given when I read that particular sentence there about how his autonomy encompasses me. It's because I am within him in his altar with Holy Spirit as the shining light within him. And it's only when I chose to understand and accept that he is within me as I am within him that I could truly accept my own autonomy. That as much as he encompasses me, I encompass him within me. And that as I accept his will for myself, the things in my life that I have been seeking come to me. The joy, the happiness, the letting go of all of the pain and the suffering that was mental and emotional. All of those things have gone away. It's only in going within and looking at all the things that I experienced with him and asking for correction that I was given the correction and I could let that crap go. And in so doing, I was able to accept what they put before me because I was tired of the pain and suffering, tired of feeling lost, like I didn't know what to do or where to go. And now I recognize that when I believed the things that I believed before, I was insane. I was crazy to believe that kind of stuff. To be in fear of all the things I was in fear of. And it's only as I've let go all those beliefs and have chosen to see the truth for what it is that I'm able to see my brothers where they're at and accept them where they're at without judging them. Please continue.
By the way, I read ahead on this next paragraph a few sentences, and I believe this is another one of those sections in the course, another paragraph in the course, or at least the first part of this, the first sentence, that is very widely misunderstood and used for attack and abuse.
And the very first part of the sentence, I keep getting told that it was flip-flopped.
So here's what it says. Paragraph 13. First sentence is, the ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts. And I remember one particular teacher saying that in response to me when I shared on ACIM Awakening Together radio. And that was her response to me when I shared about where I was at and what I was going through. And that's my experience of how this is used as a way to judge our brothers and say, oh, the ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts.
You know what's funny about that, though? What I have come to understand is that the ego is the one that wants you to blindly accept.
Yes.
And the Holy Spirit is the one that has had me analyzing every fucking thing.
That's true, huh?
Yes. And so what I'm getting with this particular sentence right here is that whoever wrote that flipped it around. Whoever wrote it flipped it around.
I don't know, because the whole paragraph keeps going on. Let me read the paragraph and then we can talk about it. All right, so I'm going to start over.
Okay.
The ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts. The appreciation of wholeness comes only through acceptance, for to analyze means to break down or separate out. The attempt to understand totality by breaking it down is clearly the characteristically contradictory approach of the ego to everything. The ego believes that power, understanding, and truth lie in separation, and to establish this belief, it must attack. Unaware that the belief cannot be established, and obsessed with the conviction that separation is salvation, the ego attacks everything it perceives by breaking it into small, disconnected parts without meaningful relationships, and therefore without meaning. The ego will always substitute chaos for meaning, for if separation is salvation, harmony is threat. Now, what's interesting is the last sentence is just about the only sentence that made sense. At some point while reading this, I think I vomited a little bit in my mouth.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on here in this paragraph, who wrote it, where it came from, if something was twisted or whatever, because this course teaches, 99% of this course teaches, except this one paragraph right here, to look at everything.
Exactly. And that's why I'm going, I'm being told inside that it has been twisted around, flipped around.
Right.
Because Holy Spirit has had me looking at every fucking thing I've ever experienced.
Right.
And analyzing it, breaking it down to really look at what I was thinking in those moments, what I was feeling emotionally in those moments, and how I was...
And what others were thinking and feeling in those moments.
Exactly.
And believing to be true.
Exactly. And, looking at whatever the situation was, what was being said to me at those moments, so I could understand exactly where I was getting thoughts and ideas and beliefs from. How I was reacting to those around me and what was being said to me as well as what was being done to me. Holy Spirit has folded time and space so I could look at these things and analyze them. So that in and of itself tells me that Holy Spirit analyzes the things you've gone through with you so you can see the truth of what you do. where Holy Spirit will always have you looking at these things and questioning them. Ego teaches you to blindly follow, believe, and accept whatever is being handed to you as the absolute truth. To conform to another's dictates without questioning what's being said to you. So I do believe somebody got mixed up here and was twisting what they were hearing to have it mean what they wanted it to mean. Because what it says there makes absolutely no freaking sense. Because it describes the Holy Spirit, yet they're putting the ego in there. In Holy Spirit's place. That Holy Spirit will have you looking at things and questioning them.
By the way, I just realized the third sentence contradicts the first two. So the third sentence says, the attempt to understand totality by breaking it down is clearly the characteristically contradictory approach to of the ego to everything. So it just says breaking it down is contradictory to the ego. Yet in the beginning it said the ego analyzes, Holy Spirit accepts. I think you're right. I think some words have been flipped around here and changed around, because the paragraph itself contradicts itself in what it's saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, this is why I don't just blindly accept anything I'm reading, folks. I have learned to question every freaking thing that I am taking into me. To look at it with Holy Spirit, God, and my guides within me, because I do have spiritual guides on the other side in other dimensions. I'm not tied just to this realm. And believe it or not, neither are you guys. Man, this ear feels like I've got somebody in it going. It's an interesting feeling to feel like somebody's talking in my ear, and I can feel the pressure on my eardrum. Like someone's like, you know how you get that breathy feel in your eardrum when someone's talking in your ear, whispering? That's the feeling I get.
What's interesting is also the last sentence doesn't sound right either. I was saying the last sentence sounded okay, but it says the ego will always substitute chaos for meaning. For a separation is salvation, harmony is threat.
Okay. And actually, that part seems to be actually true.
Okay, all right.
Because the ego will always substitute chaos for substitute chaos for meaning.
Because there really
give chaos
the
meaning.
Thing is, no, that's the thing. There is no chaos. Everything has meaning. So even in that last sentence, still there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, for if separation is salvation, harmony is threat. Now, harmony to the ego is threat.
True. Now, if you said the Holy Spirit will always substitute chaos for meaning, that would make sense. Everything has meaning.
Yeah, because Holy Spirit would be the one that would show you why the chaos around you, what meaning it truly has.
And that it's not actually chaos.
Yeah, that there's a purpose to everything that happens.
Right.
And that's what he shows me, that there has been a purpose to everything that's happening here in our home state and out there in the world. That everything is a catalyst for humanity to open its eyes to a truth, to what is happening that they no longer choose to experience, and to give them the choice of whether or not to continue with it or to recognize it for what it is and let it go. Yeah, so this particular paragraph is kind of twisted up. This is why we need to look at it and question it with Holy Spirit.
Question everything.
Absolutely. Question everything. And don't just take our word for stuff, folks. Question it. Go within your own heart and mind with Holy Spirit and question it.
Yes.
Ask for how it correlates to your own life and how it's true for you. We use our own life examples, but you may not experience things as we have. So you may have completely different experiences, so it doesn't seem to feel like it resonates with you. Like something feels different about it. It sounds true, but something feels off. There's a slight conflict in there. Well, ask yourself why. All right, let's continue on.
14. The ego's interpretation of the laws of perception are, and would have to be, the exact opposite of the Holy Spirit's. The ego focuses on error and overlooks truth. It makes real every mistake it perceives with the characteristically circular reasoning concludes that because of the mistake, consistent truth must be meaningless. That sentence does not read smoothly at all. The next step then is obvious. If consistent truth is meaningless, inconsistency must be true. Holding error clearly in mind and protecting what it has made real, the ego proceeds to the next step in its thought system. Error is real and truth is error.
So what it's talking about there, folks, the ego focuses on error and overlooks truth. It makes real every mistake it perceives, and with characteristically circular reasoning concludes that because of the mistake, consistent truth must be meaningless. It judges. That's what it's telling you right there, is it's judging. The ego makes real every mistake it perceives with characteristically circular reasoning, characteristically judging it to be something it's not, and concludes that because of this mistake's consistent truth, that judgment seems to always come true because that's how they judge it and perceive it. Because that's what they believe. They project it out, so that's what they perceive. If you believe it, you perceive it, folks. So because what they keep believing to be true is what they keep perceiving, when they hear the truth, they believe that is the error. Now, what comes to mind for me with this is the fact that every single one of the ACIM teachers I have ever come across out there, or the people, I should say, that are self-proclaimed teachers with titles such as minister and reverend and blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, all of them have told me time and again, you're wrong, you're doing it wrong, you're mistaken, you need to do it like this. This is the only way it's supposed to be done. And yet when I share with them my truth and stand in my light of truth about how when I chose to listen to and follow what I was being told, when I listened to the voices within me, and I followed their guidance instead of listening to all of them out there, I was healed of everything. All my mental and emotional anguish that I experienced all my life was healed. All the diseases I had in my body have been healed. And yet they're telling me I'm the one doing something wrong. And all that stuff was healed without medications or surgeries. And yet they are the ones dealing with cancers, fibromyalgia, and all kinds of other diseases. What's wrong with that picture, folks? If I'm being healed, as this is telling me I can be healed, and yet they continue to try and tell me that I'm the one doing something wrong, what's wrong with that picture? And once again, I keep having my guides tell me they are in a rut. They have been stuck in a rut for the last 30 some odd years and have not been able to get their asses out of there because they keep digging in behind the person in front of them. burying themselves into their own graves. Holy Spirit will give you the keys and the hand up out of that rut if you choose to listen to what He's telling you. Please continue.
15. The ego makes no attempt to understand this, and it is clearly not understandable. But the ego does make every attempt to demonstrate it, and this it does consistently. Constantly. Analyzing to attack meaning, the ego succeeds in overlooking it and is left with a series of fragmented perceptions which it unifies on behalf of itself. This then becomes the universe it perceives, and it is this universe which in turn becomes its demonstration of its own reality. Do not underestimate the appeal of the ego's demonstrations to those who would listen. Selective perception chooses its witnesses carefully, and its witnesses are consistent. In the case for insanity is strong to the insane, for reasoning ends at its beginning, and no thought system transcends its source. Yet reasoning without meaning cannot demonstrate anything, and those who are convinced by it must be deluded. Can the ego teach truly when it overlooks truth? Can it perceive what it has denied? Its witnesses do attest to its denial, but hardly to what it has denied. The ego looks straight at the Father and does not see him, for it has denied his Son. Now, you know what that brought up for me? That movie we watched, was that Oh God, Book 2 or something like that? Where they judged the little girl as insane, yet in all the tests that she was doing, she passed the test perfectly.
And it was all because she was saying that she was speaking directly to God, seeing God.
Right. And so where it says the case for insanity is strong to the insane, so who's the insane ones? The ones calling her insane.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, it's the ones passing judgment.
Yes.
They're the ones that are insane. And this is part of the reason why, in all of the different religions and spiritualities out there, folks, they say, do not judge. Do not judge. See yourself in your brother and your brother within yourself. See how you two are exactly the same, reacting and doing the same. And that keeps getting twisted in so many ways. And it's being used as a control mechanism in many ways as well. That if you're not acting and doing like this other person, then you're doing something wrong. And that's how the religions out there use it as a tool of control and manipulation. And what it's talking about here about do not underestimate the ego's appeal for the ego's demonstrations, that those who are only on the surface looking at things with that shallow egoic belief system in the foreground will migrate to those who sound good to them, that whatever they're saying resonates with whatever their thought and belief system happens to be in those moments. And it's that kind of stuff that you have to really pay attention to. That just because it sounds good and it really sounds and makes you feel good inside to hear something like that, ask yourself, is that really true? Do I really deserve what they have over there? Do I really deserve to be able to go in and take that from them because I have every right to whatever they have? That doesn't really resonate for me. Sounds good. Sounds great to, be able to go into some billionaire's house and just help myself to whatever is there and say, you have more than enough. I can have some of yours now. It's my share. Here's my share of your stuff. As great as that might sound, to be able to go in and just do something like that so I can be just as rich as they are, it doesn't resonate in my heart to try and take from someone else what they earned for themselves. You know what I mean?
I'm not sure how you even got onto the idea from just for taking things from the rich. And I'm not sure how you got onto this track.
Well, it's the idea that the ego believes that it can take and just...
That its happiness and salvation is found in taking from a brother?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Which is what they're talking about. The ego sees things the opposite of the Holy Spirit.
Actually, it does, yeah.
So the ego believes in taking, the Holy Spirit believes in giving.
Exactly. Yeah. So it all was wrapped in together.
I just had to figure it out.
Exactly.
Yeah. I guess I analyzed it.
Mm-hmm. You had to analyze it to understand what was going on.
There was a joke in me saying that because of paragraph 13.
Yeah, and this thing, analyzing to attack meaning, the ego succeeds in overlooking it and is left with a series of fragmented perceptions which it unifies on behalf of itself. And my understanding of that is that the ego will hear what it wants to hear in the moment. It's like they will hear somebody say something to them and they will immediately take whatever's being said as an attack and twist it to mean something else, even though the person is not attacking them in any way. But that is what the ego will choose to hear in those moments, because it cannot perceive anything other than attack. And that's what many of our brothers out there keep doing. They say that, you're not supposed to correct your brother, you're not supposed to attack, and yet that's exactly what they turn around and do when they tell their brothers that they're doing something wrong. It's what's that word?
Hypocrisy?
Thank you. Yeah.
Kettle calling the pot black? Or is it pot calling kettle black?
It's the pot calling the kettle black.
I think it works either way. They're both black.
Yeah. It's like, out of the frying pan and into the fire, right?
Right.
But that's part of the understanding that I'm being given with this stuff, is that a lot of these folks chose to blindly follow and believe whatever was being said to them by the person that was teaching them at that time. And they never bothered to really question what was being said to them. And they chose to then teach what they learned, extend what they learned from that person who is listening to two different thought systems there. They were vacillating between two different ones because they were wrapping their ego judgments in with the Holy Spirit stuff. And so they extended that confusion to their brothers, taught that, and their brothers are now extending that confusion and extending it and extending it. And people are wondering why the hell they can't get out the fucking rut they're in. All right, please continue.
17. Would you remember the Father? Accept his Son, and you will remember him. Nothing can demonstrate that his Son is unworthy, for nothing can prove that a lie is true. What you see of his Son through the eyes of the ego is a demonstration that his Son does not exist. Yet where the Son is, the Father must be. Accept what God does not deny, and it will demonstrate its truth. The witnesses for God stand in his light and behold what he created. Their silence is the sign that they have beheld God's Son, and in the presence of Christ they need demonstrate nothing, for Christ speaks to them of himself and of his Father. They are silent because Christ speaks to them, and it is his words they speak. Every brother you meet becomes a witness for Christ or for the ego, depending on what you perceive in him. Everyone convinces you of what you want to perceive and of the reality of the kingdom you have chosen for your vigilance. Everything you perceive is a witness to the thought system you want to be true. Every brother has the power to release you if you choose to be free. You cannot accept false witness of him unless you have evoked false witness against him. If he speaks not of Christ to you, you spoke not of Christ to him. You hear but your own voice, and if Christ speaks through you, you will hear him.
Absolutely. Wow, it's hard to break this down coherently right now.
I'm just getting as within, so without.
Yeah. You know, as I have learned to see my brothers within myself and myself within my brothers, as I go within and I look at the things that I have experienced within my own life, all the different things, all the myriad different things at any given moment as a child, I can see where those judgments and beliefs that I chose to take on in those moments are now or have now been playing out in my adult life. I can see where those dots connect one to the other. And as I have looked at these things to see where everything was interconnected, why I'm reacting to stuff this way in this time and day, when it's been years since I've had any of those types of experiences, why would these things trigger me now? And so I would look at these things and see where they correlated and be able to let them go in the moment. Now, part of what it's talking about here is that as I was seeing those things that would trigger me within my own self and how they were connected to these other things I had experienced, and how I would react to certain things as I would watch my brothers out there in the world, observe my brothers and their interactions, and listen to hear where they are truly at in those moments. I was given the understanding of what it was that was happening within them, what thoughts were going through their mind in those moments, because I could feel and sense the emotion they were attaching to the words they used when they were saying whatever they were saying. Because a lot of times those words are descriptive, directive words that are usually having grappling hooks attached to them. That's the only way I can think of to explain what I see with it. And as I see what they are going through in those moments, I recognize how within my own self, how I also have experienced those same things and have reacted in those same ways, which gives me a clue in to what it is they are truly going through in those moments, and how it is I may now be of service to them to help them see the truth and see the light of what it is that is going on. By sharing an example of things that I've experienced that are similar in nature, that have similar emotional responses and reactions. And in that way, it allows them to then look within themselves and see how they are reacting to certain things and correlate it with what I've just shared with them to see it differently. So they can then look at it in a different light, question it with Holy Spirit to say, is this right, what she's saying here? And let it go. And it's when I look through those things and I can see it in my brother and accept him in those ways that I'm able to demonstrate the truth of what it is Holy Spirit has given me by sharing those truths with you. And, I can remember a time where my ego had me believing that I didn't exist, that I was just a figment of everybody's imagination, including my own.
One of the things I was getting from that is that basically, back when I used to hang out in the Awakening Together room and group, the ego would get called out all the time. And what I was getting from that paragraph is, if you're seeing egos and not the Holy Son of God, you're looking from your ego thought system. So again, as within, so without.
Yeah.
And just like a certain someone saying that quote to me after I shared my experience, that the ego analyzes and Holy Spirit accepts, it was basically her telling me that all she's seeing is ego. Even if the sentence and the whole paragraph is twisted, that's what basically she was revealing.
Absolutely.
That she was looking through the eyes of ego at ego.
Yes, because she was judging it.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's part of what goes on here, folks, is many folks will look at stuff and tell you, oh, you're doing this and you need to do that instead. And, oh, you're just in your ego fear system right now and crap like that. And granted, I'm sitting here and I'm pointing out how these teachers are still within their ego mind with examples of how it is so. In the moment when I'm dealing with these teachers, I am also sharing with them truths and saying, that's a concept misperceived. I think you may have a misperception that you might want to question.
See, that's not seeing ego. When you're saying that somebody has a misperception, that's not seeing ego.
I know. And that's what I clarify with them, that they have a misperception. I'm not telling them that they're being an ego or that they are their ego or anything of that nature.
Right.
I'm not making real their ego. I'm simply sharing with them that they may have a misperception.
Yes. While doing this course, I have noticed a shift. But this shift occurred, I don't know, a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years ago, where it was the first year. I was practicing, whenever I would look at someone, I would say, there's a Holy Son of God. And everyone I would look upon, I would remind myself, that's a Holy Son of God. And didn't take very long of doing that, I didn't see egos anymore. All I see are Holy Sons of God. They simply misperceive who they are and who their brothers are.
Absolutely. And as it says here in 18, in that first sentence, every brother you meet becomes a witness for Christ or for the ego, depending on what you perceive in him. Now, what that is speaking of, folks, is whatever way you are choosing to think and perceive, if you choose to judge your brother as being an ego, then that is all you will be able to extend to them as ego thoughts and beliefs. Yet, if you are choosing to see your brother as being a Holy Son of God who has simply is holding a misperception, then you are seeing them as your equal. You're not seeing them as being something they are not. You are recognizing that they are simply mistaken in what they are thinking and believing in the moment. All right, folks. Unless Alex has anything to add to this?
Yeah, I was getting something from. It's funny you paused like that. It's like you knew it, but I forgot what I was thinking about for a moment when you paused. But I was getting something from Bashar where he was talking about. Think of it like a radio or a television, and you would tune into the station, and think of yourself as that radio, and you tune into the frequency, and the only thing you can perceive is that which matches the frequency of what you are. So as you turn into the frequency, a lower frequency of ego, all you see are egos. As
Yes.
you raise that frequency of, I am a holy son of God, and you believe it, and you look upon the world, all you see are the holy sons of God.
Yeah. It's true.
That's just another way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's like, as you know, just as Alex just shared there, that's how he has been shown to look at things. For me, it was me going within and seeing how I reacted and did everything, and then I could see how my brothers are reacting to everything. It's like when I could see it in myself and witness it within myself, how I thought and reacted to stuff, how I was believing in things, I could then witness it within my brother, how they were choosing to think and believe about things and understand where they were at in that moment, why they were where they were, what beliefs they were holding on to, what beliefs they were holding on to in those moments that were causing the conflict within them, the misunderstandings, the misperceptions. So as I was able to look at these things that I had experienced, I could see where my brothers were experiencing the same things. And then I recognized also in those moments how, well, if I'm thinking and believing those things and they're thinking and believing those things, then that means that we were both taught the same things. You know, something that is being brought into my attention again and again and again and more and more and more and more is that my brothers seem to stay on the surface, and they keep running headlong at an iceberg, thinking that it's just this little tiny thing that looks like maybe something about the size of this table above the water, and they're not thinking anything of it, not realizing that what's below that little tiny thing here is something that's the size of my freaking living room, and that as soon as they go and hit it, it's going to sink them like the Titanic. And all of my brothers seem to be staying on the surface level, and out of fear refuse to go any deeper than the surface, because they have and they're holding on to this belief that to go deeper and to look at these things deeply would mean that there's something wrong with them, that they're going to lose something, that they're going to have to give up something, because whatever is there that they've been holding on to, when they see it, they're going to have to let it go. And that's the whole thing that they've been holding forth to and holding on to and believing in as defining who they think and believe themselves to be. And this, my brothers, is what it is that you must be willing to go diving deeply for and looking for within you. This belief that has you believing you are this limited, tiny, infinitesimal thing that has no worth and no value. Please be willing to look at this thing that you are choosing for yourself and believing to be true about you. Because as you believe it to be true about you, you believe it to be true about your brothers and the world itself. That everyone and everything in this world is limited, starting with you. And it's not until you choose to let go that belief in yourself being limited and wrong and bad and unworthy that you will be able to see your true value and worth, and who you truly are within, and let it go. Let go of all that crap you've been taught to believe. And once you let it go, you can then extend those truths to your brothers and allow them to see the truth within themselves of who they really are. So they may then extend it to their brothers and so forth. So all of us may finally walk through that goddamn motherfucking door with Jesus Christ. Because man, he has been standing there for thousands of years waiting, people. He has been waiting. He has opened that door, unlocked it, everything, but he is barred from crossing the threshold until we are all there linked with him, arm in arm, and walking through. He cannot even put a toe over. Not even a little strand of hair can cross that threshold. It's like he's banging his head against an invisible wall until we all get there with him. Until we all recognize the truth of who we are within us. None of us can cross that threshold. And believe me, my brothers, there are many that are standing there with Jesus waiting for us to get a clue. Waiting for us to come to the understanding that we are doing all of this crap to ourselves with our choices to blindly follow and believe everything that has been taught to us and to never question it. To go with that ego thought system that's being taught.
Well, that was powerful.
Okay, that was chapter 11, God or the Ego, section 5, paragraphs 10 through 18. Let's move on to the lesson of the day.
By the way, that was channeling. Workbook Lesson 116. Review of Lessons 101 and 102. For morning and evening review. God's will for me is perfect happiness. God's will is perfect happiness for me, and I can suffer but from the belief there is another will apart from His. I share God's will for happiness for me. I share my Father's will for me, His Son. What He has given me is all I want. What He has given me is all there is. On the hour, God's will for me is perfect happiness. On the half hour, I share God's will for happiness for me.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, take this stuff in, folks, what it's saying here in these lessons, and really consider that judgments are the ego's tool of manipulation and control.
And separation.
And that is what it uses as the pry bar to keep you and itself separated from God.
And the rest of the world.
And the rest of the world and your brothers. The ego uses judgments as the sword to kill. And it's those judgments that you are absolutely freaking terrified of. The same judgments you are handing out are the same ones you are terrified of receiving.
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
Live by the judgments, die by the judgments. Because the judgments are the diseases within you, folks. All right, so that was lesson 116. God's will for me is perfect happiness, and I share God's will for happiness for me. On the hour, God's will for me is perfect happiness, and on the half hour, I share God's will for happiness for me. Put it into practice, folks. Put it into practice. See how it correlates in your everyday life. In the everyday experiences you're having. See how it is that you're making the choices and decisions to think and believe as you are choosing to do. Recognizing that you're the one making those choices and decisions and holding those beliefs to believe as you are. So that was lesson 116 review. God's will for me is perfect happiness, and I share God's will for happiness for me. And the correlating chapter text of chapter 11, God or the Ego, section 5, the dynamics of the ego, paragraphs 10 through 18. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. My name is Sabrina Reyenga.
And my name is Alex Reyenga.
Hugs, love, light, and blessings on your journey, my brothers. You are loved. We love you. Please do the work. Please go within and question everything we share with you. Do not blindly accept, follow, and believe anything that we say to you. Question everything. Recognize we do share truths with you. We lay it before you. It's up to you to pick it up and accept it and to question it. Share your truth with your brothers. Stand in your light of truth. Stop accepting the judgments and opinions of those around you. When you are hearing judgments, recognize you are hearing ego. And in those moments, turn away. Say no, thank you.
When you're hearing judgments, recognize that those judgments are the very judgments of themselves.
That too.
So it's not necessary to turn away from them.
Turn away from believing it.
Right, from believing it, yes.
Yeah, recognize in those moments, they are telling you what they think and believe about themselves.
Yes.
So when I say turn away, I'm talking about don't believe what they say. Turn away from that temptation to believe them.
Resist temptation.
Yes, resist temptation to believe that whatever judgments and opinions they're giving you is the absolute truth, because it's not. It does not define you what they think and believe. All right, folks, have a blessed day. Please be the light you are meant to be. Please be the light we know you to be. Please be the light we see you to be. Please choose to be the light. Blessings on your journey, my brothers. You are loved. We love you. Have a fantastic day. Bye. Mwah.